around 2% now. No. Yeah, we were. I was. What happened?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start this evening, I have a couple of announcements. Commissioner George will not be with us this evening. She's traveling, and we would ask that everybody in the audience also silence your cell phones, with the exception of emergency personnel. Thank you. With that, I call the meeting to order. Would you please join me for a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is to approve the order of the agenda.
Make the motion to approve?
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item D is the approval of the minutes of April 4th, 2022. They are in pages 3 through 4. They have been distributed and are in the packet.
Make a motion to approve?
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there, and moves, is there, and the second is Commissioner Jurdovic. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of April 4th, 2022. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is building permits. They have been distributed. They are in pages 5 through 8 in your packet.
Make motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permit as presented on pages 5 through 8 in the packet. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next order of business is the consent agenda. On our consent agenda this evening, we have items A through M, and starts on pages 9 through 84.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdovic. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed. They are on items A through M. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on, we are now in the regular agenda. Item 1A, a franchise agreement request by ReadyTech, Kent Shimke, DRN, ReadyTech CEO and General Manager, and Dustin Meyer, ReadyTech Engineering Manager. Are those folks with us this evening? Yeah. Welcome. Please step to the microphone and state your name again so we know which one of you is which.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name's Kent Shimke. I'm the DRN ReadyTech CEO and General Manager. Had a meeting with John, Tina, and Benji last week in regards to a possible franchise agreement or ordinance. I'm here probably a year to 18 months earlier than I would have liked to been, but we have been approached by another utility to go joint trench in an area of the wilds in West Fargo. And before I committed to that investment, I figured I better get permission from the city of West Fargo, because the plan would be to provide fiber optics broadband to the city of West Fargo in the future. I brought this is Dustin Meyer. He's my principal engineer with ReadyTech Engineering, and I brought him along in case you guys had any technical questions or or design questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions for these gentlemen? So we're talking about a franchise agreement request. Mr. Shockley, do we have that request? Do we have any documentation? Or are we on the early stages of that being developed, or?
We're in very, very early stages. Tina and I thought it was probably appropriate just to come to the commission if there's any questions, and then direct staff to start working up a draft franchise agreement and an ordinance to present to the commission. But we wanted to make sure that the commission was generally okay with moving forward with granting a franchise.
Commissioners, any additional questions?
Well, this is just brought before us just within an hour of our meeting, so I've got very little to go by. I didn't know if I could even, I don't know what I don't know, to say, yes, you should move forward, or no, we shouldn't move forward.
Well, it provides internet fiber to the home service. It's not a cable television system. It's just fiber to the home. So they would use the right-of-way, the city right-of-way, along with other utilities. And in order to provide that utility service, they need just a franchise from the city. The specifics of the technology and the build-out requirements and those things would be fleshed out in the franchise agreement as we work through that. We were just really wanted to introduce them to the city commission, see if he had any questions before he said go ahead and start working on it.
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
John, I would assume before we agree on anything, you're gonna have to look at the other franchise agreements to see what's in them.
Correct.
So before we could even give you a go-ahead, obviously that would be the first step, is to have our staff look into this. Is that what you're asking for tonight?
Right, like John and Tina said in our meeting, it was just to get me in front, to let you kind of know what we're doing. We're overbuilding Horace right now. We've done Castleton and Mapleton. And like John alluded to, it's high-speed internet via fiber optics. It's fiber to every home. We offer up to a 10 gig synchronous broadband speeds, and our lowest package is 250 by 250. So it's just, it would keep West Fargo connected to the world. But yeah, that's where we're at in the beginning stages. I just thought I'd open up the conversation because we were approached. We have an opportunity to go joint trench, which is something that some utilities don't like to do. We do. It's a cost savings to us in the construction, and also it leaves more room for other utilities in the future. So before I committed to that investment, I wanted to make sure we went down this path to get things started.
And what we're really just looking for is a direction that it's okay for staff to start that process. Because before you can grant the franchise, we'd have to have an ordinance and an agreement. There's a lot of steps in place, but we just thought it would be mostly, if you have questions about what is the service, what is fiber to the home, we thought it would just be a good opportunity for you to be able to ask those kind of questions.
I guess I'm not opposed to giving our citizens more options, more opportunities, as long as we make sure that we're not violating any of the other franchisee agreements. So I'm okay with that.
I have a question. Kind of a white elephant in the room. Talk to me about Horace and the installation of materials in the right-of-way.
Dustin, I'll let you take that.
As far as what do you want to know?
Well, my understanding is that the installation team placed the product in an area that it wasn't supposed to be.
There's some conflict there, and both aspects of agreed that there was probably some miscommunication between not only the county, Cass County, and engineering and the construction crews. The outside people had a little more authority than they thought they did, and between us engineers, we had a different agreement, and we had to basically go back and recommunicate on how the installation was. All said and done, we only had to remove about 8,000 feet that it shouldn't be where it was. Other than that, everything else stayed in place, and we're working daily with the Cass County, having their engineers on site to confirm where it's going and sign off before it's all said and done, and everything's been going smooth. They're giving us new permits, everything's proceeding.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Your pleasure, Commissioners.
Do you need a motion?
I do need a motion to allow us to proceed with DRN Ready Tech to work on the franchise agreement, the staff.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve moving forward on a franchise agreement with DRN Ready Tech with providing broadband to the city of West Fargo.
I would like, Mayor, if I could, to put
Please.
just a stipulation there that doesn't guarantee that we're going to allow you to move forward, just so you know. This is just the beginning.
Okay. Is that acceptable to the second?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations. Thank you,
Thank you,
gentlemen.
thank you very much.
Moving on, item number 1 is a request for order of a ladder truck for the 2024 delivery. Dan Fuller, Fire Chief, City of West Fargo. If you're looking for it in the packet, it is on pages 85 through 105. Good evening, Chief. Welcome.
Good evening, Commission President Dartis, members of the Commission. Before you is a regular agenda item to approve the order of a ladder truck for the 2024 delivery. This request is to order the apparatus. It's a replacement project for a 2011 95-foot tower ladder that we have in our fleet currently. Replacing this apparatus now will result in a maximum return on revenue based on the age and condition of the apparatus we are replacing. Benefits to be seen after this apparatus arrives and is in service. That is a shorter, more maneuverable apparatus for our streetscapes and higher density developments throughout the city. It is on the same chassis as our current fleet of apparatus and will complete our standardization of our fleet. While this project will not be realized until the 2024 budget, ordering this month takes advantage of project increases in costs and materials, and it locks in our delivery date into 2024. Allowing this purchase is going to give us the ability to continue to meet our ISO metrics regarding the placement of aerial apparatus within 2.5 miles of built-up areas in our city. This apparatus will serve as the first new aerial truck for the yards on the Cheyenne Business District, the commercial areas of 13th Avenue East, the high-rise, the hotels and convention center on 9th Street East, West Fargo High School and Trainee Middle School. And having this apparatus is a critical piece to our ISO 1 rating, as we are pursuing that right now. Total cost for the new apparatus is $1,682,547, and the estimated revenue from selling the old apparatus is $400,000, leaving a net cost of $1,282,574. With all other apparatus orders that we do, this includes consortium pricing from the Sourcewell consortium. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Mrs. Fisk or Mr. Larson, Finance, how will this be processed? Obviously, I would guess that the real request is for a down payment, but we have to sign a contract for the order of the equipment. So could you please explain what funds will be utilized in the purchase of this equipment? Mr. Jim Larson, City Finance Director, City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Commission President, Commissioners. At this time, the company is not requesting a down payment, actually just a commitment by the Commission for the order, which would encumber the budget of the City of West Fargo in 2024, so not until then. At this time, we've not settled on the exact source. We have several sources where this could come from. It does qualify under our capital improvement sales tax. It also would qualify under our mill levy. And at that time, we could also make a decision if we wanted to put it to do a lease of some type on it as well. So we've not settled on the exact type of financing because we'd like to have a little better knowledge of where we would be for our 24 budget. But we have those options which give us a lot of flexibility of how to finance this in the future. We are kind of looking at the capital improvement sales tax as a last resort. We'd prefer to use one of our regular financing methods of the fire fund, but we want to make sure that we have this, fully backed, should the commission move forward with it tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Questions for gentlemen?
So,
Commissioner Simmons.
Chief, I know, well, Jim, I know, thank you. I went through this a little bit with Dan. I know there's multiple ways that we could finance this, and different ways of doing it. My concern is that, you had mentioned kind of briefly, but make it more importantly, that these trucks, and it's not only for you, it's gonna probably be for Dennis as well as Matt, that these are a couple years out to get this stuff. And so unfortunately, things I think in the next few years are gonna change the way our attitudes as far as purchasing equipment. We're not gonna be able to do it on the spur of the moment. We're gonna have to think out a couple of years. So,
That's a great point, Commissioner Simmons, and that is where we're at with this. I really don't like bringing things out of budget before the commission. I like to have things pretty well, but this has been what I've been having to do lately with our supply chain issues and all the increased costs of building and purchasing trucks, cost of steel and all that's going on. So, I'm assuming the next truck after this is gonna be the same thing, where we're gonna have to ask for permission 2 years before we even get it. It's pretty difficult to try to get it all in one budget cycle like we have in the past, but it's just the way things are going. And again, this is, we're trying to beat a known price increase that's coming in May, and we already had one in December. So it's, no one knows when that ceiling's gonna hit, and things are gonna start coming down, but if we don't get ahead of it, we're gonna be out another 4 or 5% on this truck. Pay 4 or 5% more,
and still wait,
and still wait. Yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
So, Chief, we just purchased a apparatus, how many months or years ago was it?
We have a brand new one in the station that's going in service this week, and we put one in service 3 weeks ago.
Okay, and how long ago did we order those, just to give a?
Oh, those took a little under a year for both of them.
So when's the next one do you anticipate? If we order this one,
Yeah.
when's the next one coming down the line here?
So the next one that needs to get replaced is in 2026. So would have to make the order in 2024 and would have to start speccing that truck out in 2023. So next year we'll start talking about what that truck
agency
looks like.
determines when a piece of equipment is aged out?
Yeah. The National Fire Protection Association, and their standard on automotive fire apparatus for a city our size is a 15-year replacement on aerials like this. So we're gonna be just under that 15-year mark when this truck gets delivered, but this has actually been on my burner for about 2 years now. The current truck we have is somewhere the ballpark of 52 feet long, with a lot of the increases. When we bought this truck in 2011, there wasn't a lot of some of the tight areas we need to get into, alleys, the new Cheyenne Street Road diet, going down into some of the developments, the shop condos and stuff south of the side of town. That wasn't even in anyone's wheelhouse. If it was, we probably wouldn't have purchased a truck that was 52 feet long, but.
Commission, President, I would like to have Mr. Larson, our finance director, come up because the two vehicles, the two trucks, the one that's on its way and the one we just got, those were a rebate. And I'd like to have him explain to you the amount of money that Dan was able to get back through assistance of our Mark at Public Works. Tony at Public Works was assisting Dan, and Dan was able to get quite a bit of money back.
Thank you, Tina. Just to let you know, the two trucks that are being received now, the chief and Tony, they had put in for the Volkswagen grant on the diesel. We have received over 500,000 of that, 800,000+, which means that those trucks will actually be half the cost of what you had originally approved. So again, that's, due to the diligence of our fire department and some other staff, we've been able to reduce costs that we had not anticipated receiving. So this is a real positive, which actually helps when we look at this purchase as well.
Thank you, Jim.
That's the part of the comment I was looking for earlier. Mr. Larson, thank you for that. Commissioner Simmons.
I have one, another one, Chief, I know that you've been working diligently on is trying to get us to that Class 1 rating. Do you happen to know the difference in the structure as far as where we're at now, and what will that save us? Because that's also, I don't want to call it revenue, but in a sense, it will be coming in from that, so.
Yep, in a sense it is. Yeah, it'll reduce the fire costs, fire insurance costs for everyone in the city. The last time I did that calculation, it was quite drawn out when we actually went from a 4 to a 3. At that point, it was over $1 million fire savings, fire insurance savings amongst all, I think it was only like 12,400 something parcels in town at that point. To redo it now would have to put the new valuation numbers in on where we're at with the valuation of our property, but at the minimum, we're over $1 million there. I'm sure we'll be higher because we'll actually have to jump 2 grades to get to that ISO 1.
And we have to have this truck to get there, do we not?
Yep, so this truck is, the requirements for aerial apparatus is within 2.5 miles of a built-up area, and they define a built-up area as anything that has buildings that are over 30,000 square feet in floor size or 35 feet from the floor to the eaves. And so we actually have 2 built-up areas in town, everything down at 32nd Avenue and Cheyenne Street in that area, and then the downtown area here. And it just so happens they're just over 2.5 miles apart, so.
This vehicle does not qualify for the Volkswagen grant?
No, it would have if we had ordered it in that time period, but they're doing that in cycles, and I believe there was one more cycle that's ongoing right now, and we're not sure where they're at, because they had X amount of dollars to spend in the state, and I think they got to be pretty close to it by this point.
Additional questions, gentlemen?
I'd make a motion that we approve.
Commissioner Simmons moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to order of the ladder truck for 2024 delivery as outlined by Chief Fuller. Is there any additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2 on the regular agenda is review of the masonry contracts for the West Fargo Fire Department building. Chief Fuller.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, members of the commission. This item is for approval of the masonry package for the new fire headquarters. If you recall, last meeting we had brought forward every package except for, I think it was 4. We were able to cut out some of the other 4 that were left, or the other 3 that were left, and put them into different packages, negotiate as long as we were underneath a ceiling on how much money we could spend. So this is the last one that was so large we knew we had to bring it before you specifically on its own. So it's for the masonry package. Mortensen Masonry was the only bidder on this package. They have their bid security, their contractor's license, and they've put forth the acknowledged the addendums 1 through 4. They also include a air barrier as part of the project, which was in another package, but it's going to account for getting that knocked off this project. And they included 2 alternates. And my request tonight is to approve the bid and alternates 1 and 2. The initial bid was for $1,792,515. Alternate 2 comes in at a savings of $148,600. And in our value engineering list, we had about $1 million we're trying to shave off here and there. That $148,000 is included in that list. The air barrier that's included, it was another line item on our total budget project, and that knocks off another $92,000 that we're able to take off the table there. So in the value engineering part of this, we have to approve this bid and then go back with our architect and our construction management company to go back and negotiate the changes that we have. We've reduced 2 entire walls of masonry product and shaved down the last wall on the east side of the building by a number of square feet. We estimate that somewhere in the ballpark, another $200,000 we can save in that. But the process is we have to approve the bid and then go back to negotiate the value of engineering. There are representatives in the crowd from EAPC who can answer any technical questions on any of it for you.
Commissioner Jurdovic.
So, a month or so ago, I think it was, when we approved the other bids, I think, and I don't remember exactly what was said, but I felt like we had confidence we were going to have more than one bidder when it came to the masonry.
We did.
What happened?
So as far as we can piece together, we had several masonry companies in town. Kindred Schools had a project. In between then and the time that we bid this, West Fargo Schools has a project, and now NDSU has a major masonry project too, and they're starting to take people off the board. We did anticipate more than this one bidder for this part of the project, and it just so happened that the market fluctuations here and the jobs put us in this position, that there's enough work out there that this is our only bidder. And we were pretty time-bound in that. We do have century code requirements that we have to have it in our official paper of record for 3 weeks before we can even open these bids. So we went to work right away after that last meeting, but we couldn't get the notice to the forum for a week. They'd only take them on certain days of the week to get published the next week. So we were immediately a week behind, then the 3 weeks, then the opening. So timing.
And then the second part of my question, so if I'm doing the math, and then, you said that there were some changes that could be negotiated afterwards, that would save another 200,000. We're still above what was budgeted as of a month ago on that line item.
We are.
Even after that valued engineering and so forth.
Yeah, we are above. And when last meeting, we went through and looked at the overall budget of the project. Mr. Larson was able to go through and identify where these revenues were going to come from, what funds, and before, what we had cash on hand and what we were going to actually bond for. When he put this back into the schedule, we're still ahead of where we were. We said bottom line, we're going to be here. We're still underneath that number. We had contingencies built in.
But the net number is still over $18 million. Is that not correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Additional questions of Mr. Fuller?
Do you know, Chief, how much, I guess we know that it's over 18 mil, but where we're at under budget, how much we're under budget? I mean, can we make up for paying a little more for this and still stay under budget?
That's what we're aiming for right now. So there were some round numbers that we had to put in there, especially when it comes to the traffic light, and I can't speak for engineering, and I won't speak for engineering because they're much smarter than I am, but we had put $500,000 in there, and they felt that was going to come under there. There's some other efficiencies we're going to try to find. So
when you go back, if we approve this and you go back and negotiate, what happens if you don't like the negotiations? Where does it go from there?
If we don't like it, or if the company doesn't like what we're doing.
I don't care what they like.
Oh, no, it's not. And I'm going to have to ask Chris or Nick to give me the technical answer on this because I don't deal with this all the time. But I believe we go back, and so it goes back through our architecture firm, and we say we're cutting an entire wall. We're going to change this wall from a masonry project to a sheet metal product, masonry, surfacing to a metal surfacing. And we've changed what the building is. They have to go back and accept that at the contractor level. So if anything, it's going to be on the contractors pushing back, saying that they don't. But if we change the building, we change the building because we're the owner. And I believe that's how it works.
Mr. President, Commissioners, my name is Chris Thomas. I'm with EAPC Architects and Engineers, one of the project managers on the project. And yeah, essentially how Chief Fuller was explaining is what we will do is we will put the plans together to show them what we're looking for, and then they will give us a deduct cost of what we're looking at accomplishing. Some of those things, like Chief was saying, was we've got a lot of masonry over some windows. We can easily switch that out to metal panels so that we don't have to have extra lintels, extra structural steel to carry that sort of equipment or that masonry. So those are the types of things we're looking at to help reduce the costs and pull things out, which won't affect the functionality or anything like that of the building, but will provide us some additional cost savings.
Some savings.
Yes.
Thank you. Additional questions, Commissioners?
I have one more.
Commissioner?
Thank you. So Chief, if we approve this tonight, will you be coming back in front of us again with the new scenario, so to speak? So we have a little more, or how does this work from this point?
That's a great question, Commissioner Simmons. That is what's going to happen. So every time we go through with one of these, it actually counts as a change order. And we bring those change orders back to you, and we can, so I'm asking for permission to go ahead here, and then I'm going to come back and say, this is what we're able to save. These are the efficiencies we found.
Okay.
And as that goes through, it's going to be a very transparent process in front of the community and the commission on that.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, Chief.
Those will be the good conversations,
Okay.
I hope.
If there's no questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Simmons moves to approve. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the masonry bid for the West Fargo Fire Department building as presented this evening. And Chief Fuller will be returning with value-added engineering numbers. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 3 is the 2021 West Fargo Police Department Annual Report. We have with us this evening Chief Otterness, City of West Fargo Chief of Police. Welcome, Chief.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the commission. I will do my best to pull up the cover sheet here for our annual report. Proud to be here tonight representing the staff of the West Fargo Police Department. And before I get started with some of the highlights from 2021, just wanted to note that this year we'd like to dedicate our annual report to the memory of Lieutenant Adam Gustafson. He was a part of the West Fargo Police Department family since March of 2009. During his time with the department, he moved up the ranks, starting as police officer, promoted to sergeant, and ultimately promoted to lieutenant in January 2018. Lieutenant Gustafson died on duty on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 from a fatal heart attack while at the police department. So in honor of and in memory of Lieutenant Gustafson, we would like to dedicate our annual report this year to him. Moving forward, just some of the highlights I think to bring forward tonight for 2021. We're proud to report that in 2021 there was an 8% decrease in overall crime compared to our statistics from 2020, and a 10% decrease in property crime since 2020. While we did see a slight increase in crimes against persons, we attribute most of those to some national trends that you probably heard about related to COVID. Simple assaults were up a small percentage, which accounts for a large majority of the small percentage that we did have an increase in crimes against persons. So, with over 28,000 calls for service, the department continues to see a decrease in overall crime even as the city continues to grow. Our officers have worked tirelessly day in and day out to meet the growing needs of our community, and through the support of our community, we're continuing to see a decrease in overall crime, and we remain significantly below the reported 6-year crime average. In 2021, we had an authorized strength of 69 sworn officers and 13 civilian staff, and numerous volunteers that assisted us in the police department. During 2021, we hired 4 police officers. We promoted Pete Nielsen to our assistant chief, and Lieutenant Cody Belke was announced as a lieutenant promotion in December of 2021. We completed a total of 2,277 training hours on topics that included suicide awareness and prevention, ethics in law enforcement, de-escalation strategies and techniques, implicit and anti-bias training, and emotional and psychological disorder awareness. Our investigations division reviewed 920 cases and assigned 584 cases for follow-up investigation. In addition to the many other tasks that our administrative division completed, they also completed 1,045 fingerprints for the public, and those included a lot of people that were waiting on licenses to teach and our medical staff in our community to help out during the COVID crisis, when a lot of other places shut down their fingerprinting services. Our property and evidence technician logged 1,732 items of evidence in 2021. As I mentioned earlier, we did face 2 tragedies with the loss of Lieutenant Gustafson on duty. And as you'll recall, Officer Tim Brown suffered a medical emergency as well while on duty. We're grateful to the community, the commission, and our staff for the support and commitment during the sudden and unexpected events. In terms of our community involvement, some of the highlights: our department continues to evolve to meet the needs of the residents in a variety of ways. Our Community Outreach Programs and Services Unit, or COPS unit, demonstrates our commitment to working with all of our residents, businesses, visitors, and community partners. We introduced several programs this year and carried on some that have been well established within our department, including Badges and Bobbers, where we're fishing with local youth, Police in the Park ice cream socials, Cops and Daubers bingo with our senior citizens, Coffee with a Cop, our Cops and Kids holiday shopping event, Golden Drive homeless kids, food and sock drive, Battle of the Badges blood drive with the fire department, our Pink Patch project in support of the Edith Sanford Breast Cancer Center, Night to Unite, and several other community engagement events as well. It's important to note that our department volunteers that work on the department logged 1,075 hours of volunteer time in 2021. Our police cadet program logged 173 hours of community service and 241 hours of law enforcement service. Looking forward, the department is continuing to grow and is not immune to the hiring challenges felt across the nation. We're excited to host the Lake Region State College Peace Officer Academy here in West Fargo, and that'll be beginning in May 17th, I should say, just coming up about a month out. We're hoping to recruit and retain qualified individuals to fill some vacancies here in the West Fargo Police Department and through the region. And as we've talked to you before, we're still in search of a perfect comfort dog, but I'm told that we may have some updates to present to you in the near future on that. So partnering with our school district and through a generous donation from Shields, we're excited to be the first department in North Dakota to pair a comfort dog with an SRO program to address the challenges our students are facing, and also continuing to utilize that as part of our officer wellness program with our peer support team. Those are just a few of the highlights that we have for 2021, and if you have any questions, I will stand for those.
Commissioners? And you have a new program starting tomorrow, a senior citizen engagement?
We do. We have a Senior
Academy.
Safety Academy, that kicks off tomorrow morning. It's a 4-week program educating our seniors and those folks in our community that often are vulnerable to different scams and different things that happen in the community. So that'll be the first time we've run that through. And we also have our Citizens Academy folks graduating soon. We're right in the middle of running a Citizens Police Academy. We were able to start that up after a 2-year hiatus because of COVID.
All right. Questions for the chief? Yes, I am in the Senior Citizens Academy.
I was going to ask.
Starting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Good. I didn't want to be the one to say that, man.
That's all right. I'm quality control, right?
Absolutely.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief, and so appropriate that you dedicated this to Lieutenant Gustafson.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your service. Item number 4 is the public safety sales tax. And I've been assigned this one. This is one of those discussions that always difficult for any elected official. What we have is in a very vibrant, growing community. And along with that comes a lot of demands. The demands for equipment, staffing, and the like, both from our fire department and from our police department. So in doing an analysis, one of the things that we have to continuously do with all of this phenomenal growth that we've had is we have had to, at times, go to different sources of revenues in order to supply the necessary dollars in order to meet the demands. One of the first things that we as elected officials ever did is we took an oath of office. And that oath of office talks about that we will provide safety for our citizens. So this is what we're dealing with. Up there is a graph right now, and it's showing you the upward incline of the demands that we're having for calls for service. Chief Fuller over the last several months has been talking about that. He gave his annual report a couple of weeks ago. Tonight the chief did. And we're going to be at 30,000 calls and in the very near future. So one of the things that we have that is legal for the city to do by North Dakota Century Code is that we can put before the public, asking them to consider, and that's what we're doing. We're asking the public to consider allowing us to add a half-cent sales tax to the existing sales tax formulas that are already in place. Those dollars that would be generated will be used only for fire and police. And that's one of the things we need the public to understand, because that will be part of the language, is that's how those dollars will be used. Again, this frees up money that sometimes we have to take from different revenue sources in order to meet the budgets, or we have to raise mills. And if this commission has not heard anything more loudly than that they don't care for how our taxes have been going up in the city of West Fargo, or that the mills have been going up. This is an alternative because the public that comes into our community assists us in helping pay for the services that we provide everybody that's in our community. Whether they're here with a car and might have a car fire, or they have a theft or an issue with in a car accident in need of our police team. So there's a couple things we can do, and this is one of them. And so we're going to be going out to the public, and we're going to be asking them to consider something. Now, there's some very strict rules on this when it comes to staff. So what we have done is we have met with the Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation, and the Yards Business Association. And we have asked their thoughts, input, suggestions on these this type of thing, of raising having a half-cent sales tax added. The Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce has endorsed this. They are supporting it. The Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation are supporting it and endorsed it. The Yards Business Association had some really great questions, but overall they are absolutely supporting it as well. We're also working to organize some targeted industry meetings with the City of West Fargo and with the Chamber of Commerce. Now that's as far as staff can take it, just so everybody understands that. Once we vote this evening, if we vote to move a request to be placed on the ballot with the county of executing an increase of a half-cent sales tax, then staff has to step back. The commissioners can continue to engage because they're elected officials, but they cannot participating in executing any of the methodology that you communicated to the public. They can be invited to the meetings and they can give information and statistics. They can't use their position to try and influence the public.
This is the staff.
This is the staff. Commissioners can, staff cannot. And so, obviously, we're going to be looking to identify some community advocates and partners that would step up and do this type of thing. There'll also be we'll create a social media presence to try and explain exactly what I'm stating here this evening as well, with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Have I left anything out, Mrs. Fisk, that you'd like to add, or commissioners?
You've left nothing out that I would like to add. I know when we spoke earlier today, you had asked me to kind of give an idea of how this sales tax could be properly used. Would you like me to go through that right now?
I certainly would.
Okay. What will happen is if the sales tax is put on the ballot, and if the public so chooses to vote in favor of it, what we would do is there would be an ordinance written that would explain the uses and the uses of the public safety sales tax. So therefore, what it would do is outline the parameters of what can and cannot be used for. So in other words, we wouldn't use it anywhere else other than those two avenues. Mr. Shockley can explain that better than me. But the ordinance would lay out all of the details of how you want it managed. One suggestion that I would have, for example, is the public safety sales tax collections for example, a current year would help fund the needs of the upcoming budget year. This would be based on public safety sales tax collections and estimations to the end of the current year in order to budget. Police and fire departments would then build their budget requests based solely on their needs of the departments, as they always have done in the past. Nothing would change there. During the regular budget hearing, the commission would approve the final police and fire department budget requests and the amount of public safety sales tax that would be put into their funds to assist in funding the requests. Any funds from the public safety sales tax, any request to use funds from the public safety sales tax, other than what was approved within the budget for the current year, but deemed as a necessity by the commission for police and/or fire, would require commission vote and approval in order to expend those, as they were not in the original budget that the commission gave an allocation to. Now, what I'm saying is it all gets spelled out however you want it to be, but in this example, it's being prudent with what you collect, and you know what you have, and that's how you allocate it to the budget. For the expenditures, it's not allocating it to one thing or another, we're talking the budget as a whole. So it's just a suggestion, and as the ordinance gets put through, you would be the ones to vote on it, to amend it, to change it, and I'll let Mr. Shockley speak.
Thank you, Tina. And just briefly, procedurally, if the commission wants to go forward tonight, we would draft the ballot question and a draft ordinance for your review. There's not enough time to get it on the June ballot, of course, but it would go on the general election. And so you'll get to see the actual ballot language, approve that, and then we would have a draft ordinance that would be completed so the commission could review that. And if voters had questions, they could look at what the ordinance is being proposed to look like. The commission could make amendments to it after the election, but generally most commissions, once the voters approve it, they try to, other than technical changes, try to keep the ordinance pretty much what was approved at the election. So, and timeline, I would see that if the commission wanted to go forward tonight, probably the second meeting in May would be ready to present the draft ballot and the draft ordinance for your review.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. One thing that I neglected to mention is that there will be meetings organized throughout the community, not just at City Hall. We'll be organizing meetings throughout the community so the public can come in and have input on this. Obviously, this is the greatest form of taxation is when the democracy votes on it themselves. So That's what we want to encourage. We want people to come forward. We want them to voice their opinions and ask questions as to where that revenue might be spent or how and whatever. So, Commissioners? Commissioner Rolls, Simmons, excuse me.
Thank you. John, I would just make one comment that, and because we've seen this in the past, I would think we'd want to keep this as simple as possible and not confuse the public by saying that the commission has the right to probably change something. I think if it's on the ballot and it says it's going to safety or PD and fire, that's where it goes.
Right, and when I talk about change the ordinance, that would be a non-substantive, like the numbering, or like when if there's a legal matter, like the Supreme Court were to change something that you could tax, or the state legislature says, now you can tax irrigation equipment, which we can't tax. Those are the kind of changes, not, you couldn't change the use, you couldn't change the amount. It is truly non-substantive issues.
I just think we have to be very transparent and be exactly where it's going and let the people know and let them decide.
Okay, Commissioner Jurdevig.
So a couple comments. I mean, I struggle with this one because I feel like we've increased mills, we've increased fees. Now we're adding to our sales tax. I'm challenged by that a lot, but I understand that it could have a positive impact on property taxes down the road. The other concern, though, is still one of sort of competition, I guess, in terms of, West Fargo versus Fargo. If we moved forward with this, would there be a willingness to add a cap into our sales tax like what you have in Fargo, and which, from my understanding, is one of the primary reasons why all the auto dealers and anything large and expensive doesn't get sold in West Fargo, is because we don't cap it. And if we're going to add to it, I would probably be on board if we can address that competitive issue as part of how it goes forward.
I'll look to you, Mr. Shockley. Is that a separate issue?
With the half cent, you could add that into the ordinance. The previous sales taxes that were approved did not include the cap. One thing to keep in mind and I'm going to use the word conservative financial planning. From a conservative financial planning, not having a cap on your sales tax ordinance is very prudent. I'll use a real life example. There is a city in North Dakota that has a cap on their sales tax. When you have a cap on your sales tax, you are subject to rebate obligations to the state tax commissioner. The city received a tax bill from the state tax department for $5 million because of a rebate that was filed by a bigger issuer. Their total sales tax production in 1 year was about $9 million. And so planning to use the sales tax for that city became a really big issue. And so from a very prudent financial standpoint, I always recommend to every issuer not to put a cap on, because that subjects the city to, you could have a huge rebate be issued, and then it causes all sorts of financial problems that Jim could probably better get into than I could. You could certainly put that on this half cent, but the other sales taxes were approved by the voters without the cap on there.
That wouldn't necessarily solve it in my perspective, but.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Olson.
Mr. Shockley, you stated that if we voted for it tonight, it would not be enough time to get it on the June ballot. Is that what I heard, or I just want to make that clear?
Likely not. We could check into it to see if there's enough time to get it printed on the ballot, but we're pretty close. I think we needed to have gotten things to the county. So Melissa's shaking her head no. So.
In my opinion, from a technical standpoint, there might be a possibility, but from a communication and awareness standpoint, it would not be a good idea.
Yeah. And we want the public fully and completely engaged in this discussion.
What would be, I'm sorry, Mayor, what would be the effective date?
So the,
If it were to pass, would it be November 8th or whatever the election, it would be as of then, or would we wait till January?
so great question, Commissioner Simmons. The process is if the voters were to approve the ordinance, or vote to approve the sales tax, then it comes to the city commission, and the city commission, like any ordinance, has to have a first and a second reading. It would likely become effective, we'll say December or January 1st of 2023 with the first collections, because the state tax commissioner, after you notify them, it takes about 90 days for the collections to kick in. So your first actual collections of an additional half-cent sales tax probably wouldn't start till Q2 of 2023. If the voters approved it and you had the first and second reading very timely.
Mrs. Fisk or Mr. Larson, would you share with the public what your estimate would be of a half-cent increase, of what type of dollars that would generate for fire and police?
Thank you, President Commission. We've projected this to be in 2023 at about 3.625 million, which is, as you can see by the slides, these are the total budgets. It makes a significant impact to that. And as you can see, the increases, it would allow us to address those increases. But the amount is, right now we're projecting for 2023, 3.625 million.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Additional questions, comments, commissioners?
I guess if there are none, I would make the motion that we let John go ahead and write up the ordinance, Mayor.
We have a motion. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds, but moved and seconded that we approve moving forward with the request for a half-cent sales tax. Excuse me.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. Could we also add to the motion authorization to prepare a ballot question to place it on the upcoming general
Second?
election?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And that we approve the language for the ballot question. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carried. 3-1 vote. Item number 5, project number 2263, 9th Street and 10th Avenue East Signal Light. Dustin Scott, City Engineer, City of West Fargo.
Good evening. Thank you, Commission President Dardis and members of the commission. Well, before you tonight is the engineer's report for a traffic signal at the intersection of 9th Street and 10th Avenue. This was initiated because of the fire station moving forward. We have been working with a consulting firm to plan and start designing the traffic signal system. Before you tonight is an engineer's report that our Assistant City Engineer, Andrew Ruckey, has prepared. I believe Chief Fuller was spot on earlier this evening when he said the estimated project cost is $500,000. You'll notice in your packet here, that is exactly where we are at. The construction, of course, is at $375,000 and is certainly subject to the volatile bidding environment that we have. We have anticipated some significant lead times. We have another traffic signal project that's been moving forward over the last couple months, and so similar with that one, we expect some delays in getting materials here, so we are moving this along as fast as we can, anticipating that we can get the traffic signal up and running prior to the fire station concluding its construction. So with that, I would answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Questions for Mr. Scott?
I'll make the motion to create this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig, second. It's been moved and seconded to approve project number I'm sorry?
Yeah, just to clarify, we're asking to not only create the project, but to approve the engineer's report.
Yes, sir. Approve the project and the engineer's report and authorize plans.
And authorize plans and specs, yes.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is the Improvement District Number 2265, 9th Street Northeast, Main Avenue to 12th Avenue Northeast. Dustin Scott, City Engineer, City of West Fargo. This is to review the request for pricing on results and approve a task order number 3 with Houston Engineering. Mr. Scott.
Thanks again, Commissioner President and Commissioners. Well, we concluded our request for proposals on the 9th Street reconstruction project from Main Avenue to 12th Avenue Northeast. We had 5 submittals from qualified firms, all of them local. And the selection committee that consisted of myself, Matt Anvik, Public Works Director, Aaron Nelson, Planning Director, and then Commissioner Jurdevig and Commissioner Olson. The conclusion or the consensus of that group was that Houston Engineering out of Fargo had submitted the best proposal. And so as outlined in basically the instructions of our request for proposals, the first contract here is really geared towards the scoping and some preliminary engineering efforts that was identified in the RFP. And so once this process is concluded, if we are authorized to approve this contract, we will basically work with Houston to develop a scope for the next phase, which would then require an additional contract. But we need to really sit down with the firm here and identify exactly what those tasks are going to be, the extent of that work. As I said before, when we got authorization to advertise the RFP, we anticipate this process taking 1.5 to 2 years, and we are hoping to get things ready in time for a bid date in November of 2024. So because we have a master service agreement with Houston, we basically just asked them to draft a task order in accordance with that master service agreement instead of executing a separate contract. So that's why we are asking for the approval of task order number 3. But again, this is very specific to the phase 1 of, as identified in the RFP, which is, again, scoping and some preliminary engineering efforts, which I anticipate would take about, 3 to 6 months or so. I do have 2 representatives from Houston in the audience tonight. Jeremy McLaughlin and Jeff Lansick are here for any questions.
Commissioners, questions of Mr. Scott or from Houston Engineering?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the District Number 2265 and review the request for proposals, results in the task order 3 with Houston Engineering. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Item number 7 is a request for economic development sales tax funds to purchase POW MIA Plaza and the downtown yards on Cheyenne holiday decor. Melissa Richard, Director of Communications with the City of West Fargo.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners, and I'd like to invite Mike Amundson with West Fargo Events to come and join me up here as I go through this proposal. It might seem odd to talk about holiday decor the day after Easter, as my daughter pointed out to me last night when she saw this presentation, but since there's still snow on the ground, maybe it doesn't seem quite as odd. But I am before you tonight to ask for economic development sales tax funds to continue adding holiday decor to the downtown yards on Cheyenne, as well as in the POW MIA Plaza. just to frame up the problem for you, which really isn't too horrible of a problem, but we have started adding a lot of holiday appeal into the downtown area. And as we see, we have a picture of last year's tree lighting ceremony up there. And you can see, I'm not sure why Commissioner Simmons didn't quite make this frame, because I know he was up there with you guys as well. But that event in particular is a great event that really kicks off the holiday season in our downtown area and is great for those local businesses down there, and is a great draw for the community to get into the area. And is something that we'd like to sustain through the entire season, but it's something that our decor has started to do, but we need to continue to add to keep that going. And the other issue is that with the Cheyenne Street reconstruction project, we've added an additional 27 new street lights that don't have decor on them, and so we need to add we need to purchase new street light decor to continue adding items onto them. So what I'm coming before you today is a proposal to ask for a few items, and here are some proofs that the company that we've identified to purchase them from have sent over. These are just for visualization. They're not the final pieces, but what we're asking is for funds to purchase decor that will help us do a few things. One is to finish off adding decorations onto the streetlights, both the hanging decorations that sit on top of the streetlights, as well as the string lights that wrap up the poles. That was our solution. I know we've been asked in the past to try to string lights across Cheyenne Street. Unfortunately, the streetlights aren't tall enough to allow traffic to drive under them to do it across the street. But our street division came up with a really cool solution to string them up the poles instead, so it helps create a really cool lighted corridor as you go down. The other elements is that wreath arch that you see in the front there. That's a 9-foot wreath arch that will become a photo opportunity for individuals visiting the plaza. It's something that you will want to stop and park your car and get out and take a picture in front of, and hopefully continue down Cheyenne Street and visit those businesses. It's designed to match the Christmas tree that's already in the plaza, as well as 3 giant gift boxes that would go around the Christmas tree and kind of reinforce that retail commerce idea that's in that downtown business section. The benefits of, there we have Commissioner Simmons has made it back into the photo for the tree lighting because we know he was there. The benefits of this, again, is that we're supporting the West Fargo 2.0 goals of establishing downtown as a cultural center and growing the economy. It's completing the streetlight decor that we started when we purchased those new snowflakes to go on the streetlights, and we're just adding some more into that. We're making it a destination for the holiday season, and we're trying to draw attention to the whole corridor from Main Avenue all the way down to 7th Avenue by adding these in. The considerations that we looked at as we were, as the street division, myself and West Fargo Events were looking at holiday decor was whether or not there was adequate funds in economic development sales tax. I worked with Jim Larson in the finance department, and he reviewed the funds and reported back that there is adequate funding for the request that I have made of $61,258.40 for that total request. We did gather pricing and materials from multiple vendors to try to find the best possible pricing. The vendor that we ultimately narrowed it down to happened to consolidate multiple companies as we were going through this process, and they were the only ones that we found that had the materials that they made the decorations out of that we felt could withstand North Dakota winters. Some were trying to sell materials with PVC pipes, and we felt that was not an appropriate purchase for a North Dakota winter. We looked at what the storage availability was for decor in the off-season at Public Works to make sure everything would fit, that we weren't purchasing anything that was too complicated or time-consuming for a right-of-way crew to install during the season, that it coordinated with the themes and the colors of our existing decor, and that we collaborated with West Fargo Events. All that to say, we did all that research, and then we happened, after I submitted the memo for this agenda, we happened to have a meeting with West Fargo Events on Friday. of this last week, and we actually have an update to the request that we've made in the memo. So I'll have Mike Amundson come up and report to you on what West Fargo Events has committed to contribute to the downtown area, which from the city standpoint, we're very excited about the commitment that they have made, and I'm excited for Mike to present that to you guys.
Thanks for having me tonight, Commission President and Commissioners. Very excited to talk about the collaboration with the city and with Ms. Richard and all of the departments. West Fargo Events, at our most recent meeting, our board had given approval to our team to allocate up to $40,000 from our funds from our charitable gaming enterprise towards beautification in the POW MIA Plaza, specifically for holiday decor. So that project, being that was already partially in the works and partially working on with the city to be able to improve the overall downtown experience, we would like to continue to add to this project. So it would be our offer to be able to go ahead and purchase the 9-foot custom wreath arch to add to this project, along with our other monies that we're planning to put into our own planning.
So I've gone ahead and updated this, so the adjusted request then would be for $36,258.40. West Fargo Events would purchase the wreath, but we would come to an agreement with West Fargo Events to go ahead and store and install and maintain that wreath arch. And the city of West Fargo would handle those materials for them, but we would work together on that, and that is our request.
Commissioner Jurdevig.
I appreciate that, because I was hesitant on the $61,000. Dan spent way too much money earlier.
Great, understood.
So
There's none left for the rest of you.
There was a timing issue. If you would have come first, it would have been easier.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I actually was looking at that 9-foot thing, thinking that's the thing I would
Sure.
have axed.
Yep.
To probably get down to this number.
Yeah.
The second concern I have with that wreath arch, can't say that. What about snow removal around it? I mean, if that's gonna sit, and I realize maybe your picture that you have there wasn't really strategically thought about, but if that's gonna sit out on the sidewalk where we're gonna have a tool cat or whatever it does that does the snow removal off our sidewalks, that sure seems like an obstacle.
Yep. So we have been working with the street division and the right-of-way crew on all of the materials that we've selected, and so they've been keeping in mind the snow removal. And the holiday display, who's the vendor, they did place it there, and it was just based on the photography that they had. But they do have a more centralized spot that's removed from the sidewalk where they would like to place it, so that it would not be in the way of the snow removal. But that is a great question.
I have a
Commissioner Olson.
on that, with that arch, how is it secured in place, and will we have to drill holes into our sidewalks or the concrete there to keep it in place? Because, you know, it gets a little windy around here.
No, that they don't have to drill into the concrete, and they would never drill into the concrete. But there is I'm not sure what the system is. I can't answer the question for securing it, but I know our street division, our right-of-way crew, who is the ones that working with them, are confident that it will be latched down to be secured.
Oh.
I have a question, maybe.
Commissioner Simmons.
So thanks. So, I guess the question I have with all these items, which I'm hoping we will get because we've been looking for years to really decorate the downtown area, is storage. And I know that Mike, West Fargo Events has just acquired some more semi-trailers. I'm hoping you're gonna tell us tonight. And will all this kind of go in there as well as facilitate with the, all of our stuff? We'll be able to, in other words, will we have a nice little cozy place to put it? Or we're not using it without being in the way?
I can answer that the
Okay.
right-of-way crew had evaluated and determined that Public Works had area for it, but if West Fargo Events also determines they have room, I think we can collaborate on a space together that works for everyone and find a cozy space between the two of us. That would be great.
Okay, great. That's
Yes.
perfect.
Additional questions?
I would make the motion if there are none, that we go ahead and approve the 36,258.40, Melissa, is that what you're asking for today?
That is what I'm asking for from Economic
Make that
Development
motion.
Sales Tax Funds.
I'll second it.
Commission, been moved and seconded to approve an expenditure of $36,258.40 from Economic Development Funds.
I was going to say that, thank you, Mayor, to make sure we stress that it comes out of the Economic Development Fund, so.
Yes.
Do we really think there's value in the 4-foot, 5-foot, and 6-foot box? Gift
Yes.
boxes?
When we put you in there, Mayor, and you jump out, there's a lot of value there.
Mrs. Fisk?
President Dardis, this is going to sound really odd, but a few years ago, I saw those exact same type of boxes in Arizona, and there were kids and people in a place with no snow taking a ton of pictures. They are actually very beautiful.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, aye. Motion carried.
Thank
3-1 vote. Next order of business is the city administrator's report. Mrs. Fisk?
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I only have a couple things tonight, one of which is a reminder for the CIP meetings that will be coming up on the 26th of this month. One will be held at noon and one will be held at 6:30, and they will be here at City Hall. The Communications Department has been doing an excellent job, along with engineering and finance and everyone getting everything ready. So we hope that there will be people in attendance and participate in the discussion. And it will be a town hall style where there will be staff and commission president up at the front of the room. There'll be a small presentation and then just Q&A from the public. So I wanted to remind everybody of that. Second of all, or finally, but more important, I wanted to give you the opportunity to congratulate Dustin Scott. He is our new Assistant City Administrator, effective today. So I'd like to thank him and have him come up and say a few words.
Well, good evening again. I want to keep this short, but, it's a tremendous honor. I greatly appreciate the support of the commission, certainly Tina and all of the tremendous staff that I get to work with every day. I'm looking forward to continuing a career in West Fargo. I, say this every time I get a chance to, that I'm born and raised here. I have a deep passion and commitment to watch this community grow. And I can't be thankful enough that I get to do that with the great leadership that we have here, the tremendous staff, and really looking forward to this new role. So thank you very much, and I'm excited to get going.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dustin.
Thank you. Anything additional, Mrs. Fisk?
No, I do not.
Well, I do. I am proud to inform the public, the city of West Fargo, that Moody's has just upgraded the city of West Fargo again for the second year in a row on our credit rating and water and sewer enterprise from a A1 to a AA3. So that's great news. This credit score will qualify the city of West Fargo for better interest rates and lower finance charges on our loans. So that's a credit to this commission, to Mrs. Fisk and the administrative team, and of course, Mr. Jim Larson also. But we'll share that credit a little bit too with our department heads. As we continue to grow, as we spoke earlier in the day, about the phenomenal growth that this community is experiencing and has experienced, and to continue to maintain the level of service. This past weekend, we got thank yous as a commission for Public Works guys. Public Works guys going down the street and somebody's vinyl fence was blowing over and blowing out into the street, and sometimes you would think that people are just gonna drive by that. No, not our guys. They stopped the vehicle and they helped gather that all up to that guy, and he was so appreciative. We have comments from our cadet program recently from an attorney about what it means to have these young cadets introduced into the whole legal system and the type of officers that we have running that. So, you know, we struggle sometimes in dealing with the hard issues of spending money and taxes and special assessments and things like that. But there's things that transpire that the public doesn't see of some of the things that we're doing and how we're handling the dollars that we do collect from our taxpayers. So in this day and age, with revenues down supposedly because of COVID and the like, they were all forecasting that sales taxes will be down. West Fargo was up. To have this type of rating is a real credit to a lot of people, and including our residents. So good job, everybody involved. That's really good news for our city. Commissioners, anybody have any comments?
I have
like
one.
to share? Commissioner? Yes, sir. Commissioner Olson.
You mentioned all the good work that we do in the last, was it the Saturday's Fargo Forum? Or one of these? We had two of our finest men in Public Works under Matt there featured in some of the dirtiest jobs that we've got in the city. So that, if you haven't had the chance to read it, I urge everybody to go out and read that.
It's a great credit to Dan Birnbaum and his team. You bet. Very much. Commissioners, anything else? Any city staff, department heads have anything that you'd like to share with us this evening? Seeing none, Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn.
Commissioner Olson.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.